Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the gun store here in beautiful downtown Las Vegas, or the strip area of Las Vegas, from the gun store on East Tropicana. This show, Fired Up, is all about guns, politics, and self-defense. We are on YouTube every Saturday. They put up these shows. We tape them on Thursday. They're on live. And they show up on the YouTube channel on Saturdays for some reason, which I haven't figured out yet. But it's on live on YouTube. And we are simultaneously on radio at KSHP 1400 AM every Thursday. The radio show is here, and then it's gone. The YouTube episodes stay on the air forever. So you can go to our website, Fired Up with Bob, and get the old shows, or go to YouTube to Fired Up with Bob, and get all the shows going back 4 or 5 years now. My guests tonight are one of my regular guests, firearms instructor Lenny Davis, retired federal agent who works a lot in anti-terrorism training and is a firearms instructor now for the State Department. And a new guest, defense attorney Don Green. Some of you from the local area will recognize him from most of the gun shows. He's usually has a table there talking about gun rights and gun issues and defense in gun cases. And as it happened over the years, I did a couple of cases, I believe, for your firm.
Yes, we did some shootings,
and it worked out pretty well.
Yes, it did. They worked out very well.
Don does his homework. But anyway, Lenny, a little bit of your background, please, for any new listeners that haven't been here before.
Okay. Well, hi, folks. Good to be back. Thanks, Bob. My name's Lenny Davis. I'm a retired special agent with the Department of Homeland Security. I've been a firearms instructor since 1980 for law enforcement and tactics. I spent the last 8 years as a contract instructor for the U.S. State Department in the Global Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. I was going all over the world teaching anti-terrorism teams about it, and enjoyed that. And for this last year, I have been the director of training for Textratics International. We are in the process of putting a training facility here in Las Vegas. And as of yesterday, we were awarded our security and our private investigations license. So we will be opening that part of our shop up soon.
Outstanding.
So yeah, we've been busy.
And Don, if you would do the same, a little bit of your experience in all of this stuff.
Well, thank you. First of all, Bob, it's an honor to be with you at your show here, and with Lenny. He's both of your reputations, of course, precede you. I've been a defense attorney now for 33 years. I left the district attorney's office in the 80s, when most DAs now weren't even born. But the substantial emphasis of my practice is criminal defense, gun rights, civil and administrative proceedings concerning gun rights. Not only we're not the Second Amendment people that are standing there on the soapbox preaching about the Second Amendment, but we're actually fighting people who have trying to gain their rights. Maybe there's a mistake in their records. We do administrative appeals to the FBI, to the Nevada Department of Public Safety. We also litigate gun rights cases in court. And of course, in criminal defense, firearms are probably in a substantial majority of most major felonies, whether it's drugs or whether they're violent crimes. We're involved in that. And we do a little bit of business litigation. Again, my practice is in here and in California for the past 33 years.
Yeah, and he is the guy who actually takes them to court and makes them prove it, rather than settling your case out and you get only 6 years in jail instead of 10. He actually does trials, which is a big step. A lot of attorneys don't do that anymore. And, that's not good sometimes. Anyway, we're going to talk about some of those cases. We always start out with some shootings or gun cases of one sort or another. The reason I do this is to let the listeners put themselves in the position that the people who were involved in the case were in. Some of them are good shooting, some are bad shooting, some are completely stupid on occasion. We usually leave the names out. We put only the locations and references so you can find details on it if you'd like, the city and the date that it happened, so on. This is not designed to make the people involved in the particular incident look bad or look good or anything else. That's why we leave their names out. It is to allow the listeners to put themselves in that position and see what they could have done. A lot of them are very good shootings that could have been made just a little better if they'd done something slightly different, maybe called 911 before or been more prepared to talk to the police when the police showed up. Anyway, you'll see where we're going when we do that. This is from KMOV-TV4 in St. Louis. In Granite City, Missouri, an intended victim pulled a gun and shot a suspect who was trying to rob him early Friday morning. The suspect approached two men at 1:30 a.m. and pointed a gun at them, according to police. They were just out for a walk. One of the victims then pulled his own gun and shot the suspect. The suspect was subsequently transported to a local hospital. The state's attorney, in this case, a fellow named Tom Gibbons, said to the press, thankfully, this individual had a concealed and carry, which what they call it in Missouri, license. He had the ability to defend himself and his friend. Now, this is the prosecutor saying that. So you've got a decent self-defense case when right out of the box, this is what happens. The DA said the victim who fired the gun will not face charges. He added that Granite City ranks high among Illinois towns when it comes to the number of concealed and carry permits. Charges are expected to be filed against the suspect when he recovers. I threw this in as obviously a perfectly good shooting to remind us all to carry your firearm wherever you go. This is just two guys out for a walk, and at 1:30 in the morning, very near where they live, and this jerk comes up, points a gun at them for what? To gain what they got in their pockets, a couple of dollars. He's willing to threaten their lives. As I said, this is really great when the state's attorney comes in and says this was a good shoot. What I'm looking at here is the risk involved, and apparently there was no choice, of drawing your gun when the other guy is already pointing his gun. Instructors have all seen people fumble with guns all the time because they don't practice enough. When you're close like this, you need to be sure you get a solid hit, and don't presume, like in the movies, the guy's going to fall down. They don't.
They don't. That's correct. I know from personal experience that you shoot someone literally, as I said before, breath freshener away with a .45 automatic, and he sat down and went, ow. It stopped the fight, but he had already shot me. One thing I want you to take away from this is I see a lot of people go to the range, they practice shooting their weapons. That's great. You get your marksmanship skills down. But if you're carrying a weapon to defend yourself, you carry it concealed. Make sure you can draw that weapon effectively and quickly from the concealment that you're wearing it. If you're wearing a jacket, know exactly how to get to that weapon. If you carry it in any of the myriad of concealment holsters inside the waistband, ankle holsters, wherever, please, please, please practice getting that weapon out quickly. Your life depends on it.
Got to be able to make a smooth draw with no mistakes. We're in a business here where ties lose. Both of you getting shot is not winning the gunfight. So practice the way you carry the gun. I remember a three-letter guy that came in here years ago, an FBI agent, that was coming in the range to practice because they were yelling at him, his scores needed to come up and so forth and so on. And he takes off his sport coat and he slides his holster forward, and then he practices drawing, and I'm watching him do this for a while and said, I don't think you're going to have time to take your coat off and then slide your holster forward. you know, I realize you're practicing for qualification, but you need to practice the way the gun's going to be, with your coat in the way and snapped and behind your hip where you carry it. You'll be a lot better off. And you kind of, you know, but it's the FBI, you can't tell them anything. But that's what we're trying to avoid. Practice as you carry it.
That's
and
correct.
if you carry it in an ankle holster, like Lenny mentioned, just die, because you're never going to get it out in the real world anyway. But that's only one man's opinion.
Well, I remember I had a supervisor here in the Las Vegas office years ago that he literally carried his gun in his briefcase all the time. And I said, he came to the range one time. And of course, every time he comes to the range, he wears his full like pistol belt like he's a uniformed cop to shoot. I go, no. Carry, you need to qualify with it how you carry it. Bring your briefcase out. He stopped carrying his briefcase and started carrying it on his belt.
Well, that's good. That's what we want people to be doing. So,
and Bob, this is a really good example here of a district attorney from a legal standpoint making what I consider to be the right call. And that is that we have a concealed carry holder who's in a place where he's authorized to be. We have the stand your ground, which is effective in Illinois and Missouri. He draws his weapon after the threat is presented and not before. Suppose that the perpetrator would have said, "Give me your money," and then the concealed weapons holder drew his weapon. Well, there's a real question there. Was this just bare fear? But the fact that he drew it after the perpetrator presented his weapon,
right,
that's more than bare fear, even if the weapon was an airsoft. And that's a good example of a district attorney, and there's to be contrasted from the New Mexico district attorney, which you're going to be looking at in a few minutes, where they've got it still under consideration.
Right.
But it's a good decision. I do note that Granite City is near St. Louis, near Ferguson, and then you'll be speaking to the developments in Missouri less than 24 hours ago on constitutional concealed carry.
We have a WLS-TV7, that's the ABC affiliated in Carpentersville, Illinois. Police responded to a report of an armed robbery at 7:30 p.m. at Oscarson's computer store on Ravine Lane, if you all know where that is, if you're from that area. Two men armed with handguns walked into the store, demanded cash, and tried to restrain the employees with zip ties. Before they ran out of the store, one of the men struck an employee in the back of the head with his pistol. The injured employee managed to grab his gun and ran out after the two, went into the parking lot and fired several shots. Investigators have not yet determined how many times the employee fired. I know that the number of shell casings, the number of hits didn't match exactly. One of the suspects was struck several times. The fire department transported him to the hospital where he died. The second suspect got away in a vehicle driven by a third suspect. Investigators have not said what they got away with, how much money, whatever. Crime scene investigators are picking through the grass and whatever to recover shell casings because nobody really knows what happened here yet. A neighboring business owner said the computer store is usually very, very busy. He also said the area's been quiet since he opened his business there. And he says, I guess we need to talk to the landlord about lights and cameras, where all three of us go, duh. We have to be a little more careful. Here the employee showed great courage chasing the guys out. He'd already been hit in the back of the head with a gun. He's presumably a little dizzy from that. He may have stopped several future crimes by shooting this guy and made the community safer. The possibility of being killed is perhaps the greatest deterrent there is against robbers. They're not afraid of going to jail, as most of us know. They are afraid of getting killed. That's all nice, and I'm applauding this guy as being a hero. Let's look a little bit deeper. The downside possibility here is huge. The guy got a bunch of money. When you chase the robber outside, you know he's got a gun. What if he shoots you? What if he cripples you? What if he fires at you and hits somebody else, you're creating a gunfight out in the public street. And I know I'm going to take some flack from some of the letters I'm going to get about this, but consider the safety of simply, you know what the guy looks like, you call the police, don't run out after the guy. The negative possibilities are huge. The gain is that you recover your money, or you prevent very likely future crimes. I mean, all these guys do it over and over again before they go to jail. Try to be a good witness and don't put your life in danger unless they're endangering another human being. To chase guy out over money is just not well thought out. And again, the guy's a hero. I applaud his actions, but it need a little more thought.
Well, and tactically, the guy left the building. He left the business. Yeah, he attacked him. The employee armed himself. Make the guy, if the guy, protect your own life, number one. Money can be replaced. Your life can't be. In this situation, I think it might have been better thought out. Yes, it turned out to be great. Yeah, there's one less bad guy. That's great. But here's the problem that I see with this. Like Bob said, you go out there and you start a gunfight in the public, and the rounds are going to go somewhere, and they go at, I don't know, 7:30 p.m.
They're still investigating.
Yeah,
There's
so
lots of people out there.
There's a lot of people at 7:30 p.m. around there. Somebody could have got hit with that, and you're going to be responsible for that. Ideally, I think more tactically sound, coming from a law enforcement background and being tactical with that, is, hey, I'm inside that building. I'm going to lock that door, and if this guy wants to take off for the money, let him go. If he wants to come back and try to hurt me, he has a gunfight in his hand, but he's got to come through what we call in the law enforcement business the fatal funnel. He's got to come through that door. When he comes through that door, you own him.
What do you think, Don?
Well, Bob, again, here is a very timely issue. There are at least 2 federal circuits, including the circuit in which Illinois is at this time, in which the following issue is partially briefed. That is, whether a person who has been robbed, his home has been burglarized, or whether the person's been taken, can use deadly force with a firearm to recover the property. Those are 2 issues which are being litigated or been briefed right now as we speak. In the last 2 issues of a couple of very prominent gun magazines, which you can buy at Kmart or Walmart or at Barnes & Noble, there are articles about this very issue of the recovery of property in an incident such as this. The observations made by Bob, the observations made by Lenny are, the bottom line is, from a defense point of view, if this person comes into my office, that is the shopkeeper, the person who was at the computer store, comes into my office, I have to tell him or her, we have a problem. And the problem is, should, from a law enforcement standpoint and a witness standpoint, should you stayed in the store, maybe a shot went off, but not chase him into the parking lot where we don't know how many shots were fired or the type of weapon. I'm going to tell them that we have a problem here, that even though you may have been thinking you're going to protect the property, if it's your shop, your computer store, or it's a chain store, whatever, the critical question is, when the perpetrator left the shop, did the danger start to dissipate? From a legal standpoint, from the average juror on the street coming in and looking at this, they're going to say, well, he should have given a description of the perpetrator, which he probably did, and not chased him with the weapon outside of the computer store. It was a very timely issue.
There's another thing we've seen come up. Now, the perp who was injured outside sues you for his injuries because he was merely leaving. Now, he's not going to make that case. If that goes to a jury, he's going to lose. But who pays Don to deflect that lawsuit? You work for free, right? No.
Well, that's the third problem when the people come into my office is I say, well, you think you have a problem with the police and now when we quote the fee and you say, well, I didn't know it was going to cost that much. And we have to have an expert such as yourself, Bob, and you and I have been involved in some.
I usually pro bono. He charges all the money.
Can we try? But yes, that is a problem. Who has the fee? Unless you've got some kind of CCW insurance, but that's not going to cover you as a shopkeeper with a rifle.
No, it's not going to cover you on this because it's not related to your concealed weapon carry.
Yeah, that's correct.
Like home insurance wouldn't cover you if you ran out of your house and chased somebody.
And another point tactically that you got to think about too is, okay, this guy goes out to the car. He's got at least one other co-conspirator waiting for him. Has that guy got an AR-15, a rifle, a shotgun?
Well, yeah.
As a backup. So now you think, well, I'm going to go up there and engage this guy handgun to handgun, and now you're in the middle of you're in the wrong place. You're a rifle fight with a handgun.
The one we talked about just before, the perp runs out and he jumps in the car that somebody's already in. There were at least two more people involved in the crime that he didn't know were out there. Just chasing people down is fraught with danger. You may make your case, but don't do things out of mad. Do things out of thinking about, do I want to do that? I'm going to skip over to number 4, guys. One more thing. This is from KRQE TV 13. To Harris, New Mexico, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office were called to a home on Campo Road about 5:30 in the afternoon. Deputies found a 40-year-old intruder had broken into the home and attacked a 70-year-old male resident with a bamboo stick and a hockey stick. The victim suffered a severe head injury but was able to shoot the intruder in the chest with his .38 caliber handgun. The intruder died at the scene. Neighbors were calling the resident a hero. One neighbor said he walks with a cane. He's a bit older and has some issues. I think a strong breeze would have pushed him over. Deputies not releasing exactly what house it happened, but neighbors, of course, pointed out to the news media where it was. The deputies all became clear that they were all worried about their neighbor. A couple of neighbors commented, thank God he was armed, and most of us are up here also armed. People see this as a good place not to come for sure. The neighbors agree the incident should serve as a warning to anyone considering targeting their community. I love that statement, as if the bad guys actually read the paper.
Yeah.
The sheriff's department said no arrests have been made in this case. It's forwarded to the DA's office to determine if it was justifiable. And what we're looking at here is the perfect self-defense case, in my opinion. It's a home invasion. The intruder tried to eliminate the guy's resistance, immediately coming in and smacking the guy. Most cases like this end before the officers even get word, let alone arrive, because of dwell times in 911 system and so forth, and the police aren't parked on your front lawn when they get called. Having a firearm in your home clearly saved this guy's life, and against a much younger and agile attacker. If we look at this and think what the outcome would have been if this 70-year-old, not very good shape guy had not had a gun, is an absolute disaster. The only other comment, when the neighbor said that, this will keep bad guys from coming to this neighborhood because we all have guns. I recall a bar in Los Angeles when I lived there that I'd saved an article from the paper for years. I couldn't find what I did with it anymore, but this particular bar owner in his little bar had shot 7 robbers over a 4-year period, killed them all. And he had a gun stuffed everywhere in the bar. He could just reach and have a gun right there. And people kept showing up 6 months later saying, stick them up, and he'd just go bam, and that was the end of that. The guy could shoot. He'd killed 7 robbers, and the next one would show up. They don't read the paper, thinking that because your neighborhood they shot somebody is going to help. It isn't. They're not subscribers to the RJ, and they get their news from websites on their cell phones.
The only comment I could make on this case is the absolute brutal assassination that you did on the name Bernalillo County, New Mexico, instead of Bernalillo County, New Mexico. Having lived in that area before, in Bernalillo County, New Mexico.
Did you have a gun in your house at the time?
I did.
Well, see, the guy was right.
Yes.
Bob, again, and Lenny, from the legal standpoint, we look at the fact that New Mexico's in the 10th Circuit, which is a decent circuit as far as some of the gun issues which come up. But importantly, you point out as a perfect self-defense, this is the case in which Justice Scalia had suggested in the Heller decision of the firearm in the home, a gun, as generally the weapon, as to use Justice Scalia's words, the weapon of choice for home defense. And I see that under New Mexico law, and I'm not licensed in New Mexico, but I've had some dealings with some attorneys in New Mexico, that even though it may be a clear case of self-defense, the police, local police, are going to be required to allow that decision to be made by the district attorney's office, which actually in charge of the prosecution. So the police are making an excellent decision instead of just telling the media, yes, it's a justifiable homicide, and leave this to the legal authorities to do that based on New Mexico law and the 10th Circuit, which incidentally was, as I said, it's the perfect Heller case predicted by Justice Scalia.
Yeah, and one of the things, occasionally we have investigators that will come to the crime scene and say to you, while your gun is still smoking, this is a great shooting. Boy, you did fine. We're going to get you a free range pass to practice at the police department. What happened? You still want to say, you know what? There's a dead guy over there, and I'd really like to talk to an attorney, even though you seem like a really nice guy. It isn't his call whether it's a good shooting. That's a nice comment.
Absolutely.
But don't get sucked in to an investigator who Phil Ramos comes to mind on that. He's a frequent guest on this show, who gets every homicide he investigated. They would just immediately, he's such a nice guy. They would immediately just tell him their whole life story instead of saying, there's a dead guy there. I think I should talk to an attorney. Should I talk to an attorney? Well, I don't know. I don't think you did anything wrong.
I was asked this very question the other night by a friend of mine, and he says, well, you're a former federal agent, firearms instructor, and, if you had somebody break in the house and you shot them, what would you do? Would you tell the police? I mean, you used to be one. I said, yes. But I would still say, guys, this is who I am. I want to come down and talk to you, but I want to get my attorney first.
You just got to. It's just.
If you're silly if you don't.
Oh, and I forgot on the end of this story, never bring a hockey stick to a gunfight.
Absolutely. That was the point that I was going to make.
This is about the fourth one of these I've had with a hockey stick. We had one a couple of weeks ago where a guy got attacked at a gas station. The other guy comes out of the car and starts beating him on it with a hockey. What are you doing with a hockey stick?
Getting shot. That's what you're doing.
Well, yeah, in his case. Yeah, it was don't bring a hockey stick to a gunfight. Couple of other things. I'm going to 5 now. We're getting toward where I got to start thinking about time here. This is WIVB TV4 Vienna, New York. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Thank you. State police say a man shot and wounded a friend who mistakenly he took for an intruder. This 23-year-old man was shot after he returned to his friend's home to recover his cell phone that he had accidentally left there. The wounded man had been in the home earlier Saturday, but had left. He returned. Now, we didn't get a time frame as to how long, in the reports, how long he'd been gone before he came back. But he came back at 9:30 in the evening to recover his phone. The resident fired a single round from a long gun and hit the guy in the shoulder. The officials didn't name the victim. He was taken by Mercy flight to a hospital in Syracuse. He's expected to survive. The resident immediately called 911 following the shooting. The message left for comment on his phone by the media has not been returned. Good idea. There have been no arrests. Fortunately for everybody involved here, this shot was not fatal. This is where you get my lecture on using warnings. Where it's possible, unless the guy is in your face, from cover, loud, who's there, what are you doing in my house, something, because often you'll get a response, hi, it's me, Bill, I left my cell phone, and I don't know why I walked into your house without announcing myself, or maybe he didn't, you just didn't hear it. Stuff like this is what gets the left telling people, you know, why nobody should have a gun because we're all too stupid to own one. Well, this is not smart, but we're bringing it up for the purpose of education. Hillary doesn't subscribe to Fired Up, and the left already knows about this. It was all over the papers. This was in New York State. Well, I'm not letting the cat out of the bag here, but it's educational that someone would do something with that little bit of a forethought. There's a person came, opened my front door, bang.
Well,
Whoa.
And just like when I tell everybody, I was part of a special response team, like SWAT team for U.S. Customs. I train SWAT teams all over the world. What's the first thing that we put on a gun when we're working, especially at night or low light? We put a weapons light on it. Why do we do that? So we can identify the target. Now, I don't know, this was 9:30 at night. I don't know the circumstances. Was it dark in the house or whatever? This guy somebody comes in the door and he blows a hole in him. Again, a warning, hey, who's there? What are you doing? What's going on? And a light. A light serves two purposes. One, you can't legally shoot somebody unless you can identify the threat. So if you can't see in the dark, you can't identify the threat. And it also serves the fact that all of a sudden somebody's got a very blinding light in their eyes. Even if they are a bad guy, they're going to think twice about being there.
From a legal standpoint, every viable, justifiable self-defense case which gets prosecuted criminally, or if you're involved in a suit, you, the shooter, 99%, you're going to be on the stand. When you're presenting your background to the jury, that you were in your home, it was 9:30 at night, it was dark, and someone came in the house and you shot him, even though it was with the long gun, when your attorney finishes his direct examination, you have opened up yourself to cross-examination. Why didn't you give a warning? Who are you? I have a weapon. Stop. Drop your weapon. You're in my house. Dad, it's me. True story out of California.
Yeah.
A husband and wife upstairs in bed. It's late at night. Husband hears a noise downstairs. The dog is alerting. Husband is going down the stairs, sees a sees a silhouette illuminated from the light left on in the pool in the backyard. The sliding glass door is open. No sound is made. No warning. Shot fired. Dead center in the chest. The man is dead. It is his son-in-law. The son-in-law was coming in from Alabama or Mississippi, and instead of calling and saying, look, I'm here a little bit early, he goes around to the back, gets a screwdriver out of his backpack, lifts up the sliding glass door, slides it. That's what alerts the dog, alerts the homeowner. Homeowners now, after he shoots the son-in-law, now going through a divorce, but at least he's not in jail, but facing a possible lawsuit. So the jury is going to look at that, even though the jury may be instructed that you don't have to give a warning shot. You're going to be asked that question. And when those jurors go back into the deliberation room, they're going to say exactly as what has been pointed out by Bob, and is exactly what's been pointed out by Lenny. Identify the target. Was it a threat? Could you have done something else? They're going to think about that. And I understand. And I know jurors like to, they'll follow the law. But when they get back in that room, we don't know what they say.
Yeah. It's, you really don't want to go in front of a jury, even with a good case. They're a crapshoot. We've all been surprised by juries. We go, how could they possibly have come up with that? This one I just threw in because it just lightens the mood. This is from a website called arrest.org. This was on the 1st of this month, 15 days ago. 2 felons are charged with a crime for posting a video on Facebook of himself shooting a gun at a suburban shooting range. This was in New York. I didn't put it in the outline. A police officer was monitoring a Facebook page when he saw a live video of a man he knew to be a felon and a gangbanger shooting a handgun at a range in Winthrop Harbor. The officer was able to identify the shooting range where the video was being shot. He contacted the Winthrop Harbor police. Officers were sent over to the range and arrested 2 25-year-old felons who had recorded themselves on the video. Both men are charged with aggravated use, unlawful use of a weapon by a felon, a Class 2 felony. They got different bond amounts. One's $50,000, the other one's $30,000. You know, the gangbangers put, I don't know how many convictions we've seen of guys going to jail because they're not allowed to have firearms, and they show a picture of themselves holding guns and this and that. And you can argue that they'll always go, that was a fake gun. That wasn't really mine. It was a toy. Yada, yada. I've actually been on one of the famous Watergate guy that showed himself with an Uzi that he tried to convince everybody was actually a fake Uzi. That probably wasn't, but I don't want to go there. How stupid can you be to do a live video if you're a felon showing yourself shooting a gun in a range, and still they're still there when he calls the police in the town, says go over the range, these are the 2 guys, send them their picture, and they're still there.
Well,
you gotta love it. I mean,
you know, I've seen people this, you know, they're just some gene pools that need a little more chlorine. We've seen people. How many times have you heard of, oh yeah, I'm on a work, you know, I've got a workman's comp complaint, or I've been injured in an accident, I've got the neck brace on. I remember one several years ago. I believe the woman was either an LA County Sheriff's deputy or an LA police department officer, and she had filed a complaint and a claim for a neck and back injury. She was about to be awarded several $1 million. And what does she do? She goes to the Prescott, Arizona rodeo, which is pretty much an all police rodeo, and rides a bull. And somebody videotapes it. And when they got ready to go in and do the close on it, they brought the video in, and she went to jail because she filed a false report, false claim. Yeah. So if it's on YouTube, folks, it's going to bite you.
Bob, you raise a very good point. So do you, Lenny, just your last point. If it's on YouTube, you know, something's going to back and bite you. I'm not here to criticize the advances in social media, but right. It is for all the people listening to the show and all the people who are watching or will watch the YouTube. I would say that most of the people are law-abiding citizens. Yes. But the people who are using the social media are doing it for, in my practice, a number of reasons. They're showing off, I can do this, and then they come back and try to use this defense that it really wasn't a real weapon. And when the feds or when the state busts open that door because they've got a search warrant and they find real weapons, it becomes very real.
Yeah.
And I tell people, don't advertise the fact. And I guess the opposite is, if you are a CCW holder, don't advertise the fact that you have a CCW to your neighbors, to your when you're at Walmart, with reaching for your checkbook or reaching for your credit card, and you pull open you've got your strong side exposed. So the opposite of that is equally true. And they were shooting with a handgun, and I do notice that apparently these are state felonies, because if Lenny would have been there as a federal agent, there's no bail.
Yeah, there would be no bail. No, these were state officers. They called the local police department and went over there. So they're looking, perhaps, if there is a gang task force that
I was
is
just going to
interested
say,
in these two guys.
if these guys are gang members and there's a federal gang task force somewhere, this is what is known as a referral to prosecution to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
And sometimes it works. And they might twist these guys into writing off other people. And, a couple of them skipped to number 8 here, guys. There's just a couple things that caught my eye over the weekend. There was a burglary here and a shooting at the burger. And during the press interview, a LVMPD spokesman, who may or may not still be an LVMPD spokesman, said on the news that, explaining to the guy how dangerous burglaries were, he said there were 276 burglaries that week, which was the first week in September, 1st through the 7th, this month, this first week. Metro had 276 burglaries in its jurisdiction, which will make the number for the year approximately 14,000 in Metro's jurisdiction. That does not include North Las Vegas, Henderson, or Boulder City. So if you think that, and if you watch the people on these programs that are interviewed, they always say, nothing ever happens in this neighborhood. This is a really quiet neighborhood. Almost always. Do you feel safe without an alarm system, cameras, a dog, and a firearm? Probably not. 14,000 burglaries in Clark County without counting Henderson and North Las Vegas and Boulder City, which gets a couple hundred. Sorry to let that out of the bag, Boulder City, but they do. You need to have an alarm and lights and locks on your doors at work and. Every deterrent you can find, or you're going to meet a burglar at 3 o'clock in the morning when you don't want to meet one and go through what these people we're talking about are going through. You can not defeat burglars. They can break into anything. You can deflect them by making your house more difficult than the one next door. That's your standard, the house on either side of you. And go out tonight, look at your house, look at the other two houses, get bigger lights, bigger alarm signs, a bigger dog dish on the back porch, whatever, just one up your neighbors. And when his house gets broken into, don't tell your neighbor, ha ha, I made the guy go there. That's rude. Comments on that? No. I can't believe all that.
We could do a show on everything that you could do on burglaries, and you just have to do everything that you can to deter it. You're not going to stop it. If somebody really and truly wants to break in your house, unless you're at your house 24/7, 365, and you're probably armed and you've got the Rottweiler or the Malinois with you, you're probably going to get, there's still a good chance you're going to get burglarized.
Sure.
Do everything, that you can do to deflect it. I mean, you can do little silly stuff. One of the things that I've seen that people seem to forget, they'll go out and they'll spend hundreds of dollars on screens and bars on their doors. Go to Star Nursery and buy a Cholla cactus plant and plant one under every window that you have in your house. They're desert landscaping. They don't use a lot of water. They grow really quickly, and they are the nastiest cactus on the planet. You can't get in that window. When it grows up to that point, you've got a really nasty, lovely barrier, and it's all green technology. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
That's, it is green technology.
The points that both of you are raising here also translate out into when the concealed weapons holder is out in public.
Yeah.
Don't advertise the fact that you have a weapon.
Yeah.
Use look at yourself in the mirror. I know, Bob, in your classes, when someone's got a jacket on a shirt, you raise up your arms in the mirror to see if the weapon will be presented, if there's an imprint of the weapon. I mean, don't wear a thin T-shirt, which is going to show the outline of the weapon. And it goes part and parcel to these burglaries. You're advertising that, by not having these preventative measures at your house. The same goes true for the CCW holder.
Exactly.
From a legal standpoint, I always give them, just take a second, I always give them like two examples. I call it my pumpkin patch example, and that is where the older gentleman dating a much younger woman takes the kids, her children, to the pumpkin patch, and when he reaches up in the food truck to get the cotton candy, he's wearing this leather motorcycle jacket thinking he's Marlon Brando. And when he lifts up, exposes his weapon in the holster, do-gooder teacher calls the cops, and he gets a citation. The other one is the Walmart incident where the man has his wallet on his strong side. When he reaches for the wallet, he exposes the weapon. Henderson police are outside of the Walmart when he gets out. The third example is when the guy's at Kmart and he's trying on some shoes, and he bends over, weapon is exposed. To be contrasted from another big box store where the guy walks in to get his toaster oven, and they never have them where you can reach them. They always have them way on the top shelf. He's reaching for it, and the little old lady comes in, and the little cart, which they allow the people to ride in, she knocks him over. It exposes his weapon when his coat opens. That's a clear example of an accidental display of the weapon, and nothing's going to happen. But what you talked about in burglary and vigilance also translates identically into the world of CCW, so that you don't come to me, with these citations that you've exposed your weapon, that there's been a display of the weapon, and hopefully it's not a brandishing.
Hopefully, and be smart. If you're in the 7-Eleven and your gun is accidentally exposed, and the woman goes, "Oh my God," and starts screaming, don't run. The police are going to show up and chase you. Cover your gun back up and calmly wait to explain what happened. You're going to make it a whole lot worse, because then you're going to be an armed robber who took off and the whole department's looking for you. Call 911 yourself and say, "Hi, I just accidentally exposed my gun. I'm in the 7-Eleven. I'm waiting for you, and I'll be right out front." And I could just see somebody doing that and then running.
Yes, that happens more often than you would like to admit.
Comment. I found a little quip on the website I wanted to just throw out, because all the gun stuff about gun owners are all idiots. I couldn't even tell you where I saw it. I just copied it. The column said, "Just saying." It says, "We are advised not to judge all Muslims by the actions of a few lunatics. We are also encouraged to judge all gun owners by the actions of a few lunatics."
It's true.
Yeah, it's just the way life works. A couple things at the end here. The next gun show is Crossroads of the West at Cashman Field downtown, October 29 and 30. I have a few passes for that show. If you would like to send me a text or an email to bob@firedupmail.com, I will, or a text, is that appropriate for there? I will get one out for you, and we'll leave it here with the cashier for you to pick up. I think it's $15 to get in the show, so
yes.
It's a pretty good deal. Next week, we will be here with guest attorney Clark Patrick, who was actually here earlier for whatever reason. who's a murder defense specialist, the guy we hope you never have to meet in his professional career. We are here every week from 5 to 6 p.m. on KSHP 1400 radio, and all the time on Facebook. Talking about leaving stuff on Facebook, when you were saying that, I'm looking at all my old shows where I said things now that are completely wrong. And look what Bob said. You know, if I ran for office, you know how much of that stuff they'd be using for. You know,
Oh, yeah.
this Irwin guy is an idiot. He said, blah, 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 you know. Call him as we see him, and there we are. The gun store here, we offer free concealed carry permit classes 3 times a week, every Monday, every Wednesday, every Saturday. You can find those on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. That's a plug I usually put in between things, and I didn't do that tonight. I've got, you know, I made these outlines not for having this many guests on, and that's, you know, I got one more. We got about 3 minutes. We're gonna go to number 11 here, guy. This just, you know, eliminating yourself from the gene pool is something people do. Fox News Radio reported on the 12th, a couple days ago, police, don't laugh yet, I haven't got to the bottom.
I saw this already.
Police in Tampa, Florida, say a young man claimed he found his 23-year-old cousin outside a house on Saturday night with a gunshot wound to the chest. He called the cops and said, my cousin's out here and he's shot through the chest. However, there were a whole lot of witnesses in the neighborhood that quickly told the arriving police a little different version. The 23-year-old, now deceased guy, had put on a bulletproof vest and then wondered aloud if it still worked. And the other guy said, well, let's see, and pulls out a gun and shoots his cousin in the chest, who died at a local hospital when the bullet went right through. Now, that is only part of the stupidity. When all these stories I pull, I always pull them from 2 or 3 sources, because you get things on the internet or whatever that are just hokum, and you know, I usually get, if it's a serious case, try to get 3 sources on it, and I usually always say something slightly different. But anyway, the Associated Press picked this up and added that the 23-year-old who was shot by his cousin wasn't actually wearing a bulletproof vest. He had donned a vest marked fragmentation protective vest. It was a flak jacket. Remember the old ones with the little armored little metal things that were hanging? You're supposed to, you know, I guess
I hate to admit this, but I was in the Army long enough ago.
They had those?
They had those, yeah.
I've got a picture of that in back of me at the gun shows in a gun ship, and you put in the pad.
Yeah.
I've got, for old time's sake, I've got one at the house.
Not designed to stop bullets, designed to stop fragments in the air, flak that throws little fragments, and you know. Anyway, the shooter is now charged with manslaughter and, of course, being a felon in possession of a firearm. Manslaughter seems to be the perfect choice here. This really, in every sense of the word, was a manslaughter case. Don't test your body armor by having someone shoot you. We've had, I couldn't tell you how many officers that have been, or people wearing this that have been injured because when even real bulletproof vests, the standard is that when this particular caliber hits it, the back face of the vest deflects into you less than 1.73 inches. I don't know where that standard came from, but if you've ever had your ribs depressed backwards 1.73 inches, surviving that is a real problem. Theoretically, there's some government study that says that's okay, that you'll survive. Lots of people don't. Body armor doesn't work in all cases against all guns, and never do. I mean, this is just one moron eliminating another moron from the gene pool, and he's probably eliminating himself from several years of his freedom.
I mean, I've personally been in 2 bulletproof vests when bullets struck them. I will tell you right now, you would rather have a root canal without any Novocaine, and you would probably
People
think
really
that
hate
would
it.
be like a massage, because I'm telling you, it hurts. It's better than being dead, but it hurts.
We're there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to Fired Up. We're here next week with Clark Patrick. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thank you guys for appearing.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Bob.
sir.
Great.
Thank you.
Hang 1 second.